what is something that you constantly want to improve and constantly fail to accomplish?
I would say trying to get out of pain is a bad goal for me. So like for me, pain is just going to be a part of my life. With Ehlers-Danlos, it's just going to be a part of my life. However, I can make improvements to that thing. At the same time, it's never going to go away. I'll give you an example. I love jumping on the trampoline with my kids. They're 9 and 6, and these boys are very rambunctious. And so I keep myself in good enough shape to be able to do that with them. However, my cervical spine hates the trampoline. Those ligaments that are supposed to be holding those vertebrae together, they're not very strong. So what happens for me is jumping on the trampoline means I'm going to be in neck pain. It just does. And so if my goal is get out of pain, then jumping on the trampoline with my kids is counterintuitive to that goal. It's not productive. At the same time, I have to make a decision about whether or not that's important enough to set the pain goal aside. Still be intelligent about it. I'm not trying to land on my head here, but I fail regularly at keeping myself out of pain because I want this meaningful experience with me and my boys, and I'm willing to endure it.
And that is something I think is really interesting, right? You're saying that you are sacrificing the pain intentionally, knowing that it's going to happen, but that sacrifice is worth it.
Yes.
So let me tell you what is always on my mind, right? Just like you, I am accomplished. I've achieved challenging things. I've done things that were hard. I am often given credit far beyond anything that I give myself, right? Where I am perpetually failing and always endeavoring to be better is as a husband. I am reminded every day how bad I am at being a husband. I was a pretty good boyfriend. I think I was a really cool fiance. But once rings were exchanged, something changed for me where I started expecting more equality in the relationship. I started expecting that I would have to sacrifice less in the relationship. I went from spoiling my fiance to kind of living a life with my wife that I just expected she would naturally understand. We're not engaged anymore. So I'm not always going to polish your coffee exactly the way you want it to be polished with the right sugar and the right cream. And sometimes I'm not going to be happy when you fart under the sheets, right? Sometimes I'm going to say something about, can you change your diet? All things that nobody does when they're dating and when they're engaged, right?
Right.
I feel like it's my responsibility to improve as a husband. Not that I need to try to be what I was as a boyfriend, but I could always be more patient. I could always be more supportive. I could always be more comforting. And with 2 kids and a business and a network and a demanding schedule and whatever else, I often find myself not investing that time into being a better husband. And it really makes me get down on myself sometimes. It especially makes me get down on myself when I do put in the effort and I do try something, but there's no reaction.
Yeah.
Do you find anything like that with yourself in your marriage?
Marriage,
and if you're going to say that you're the perfect husband, we're just going to cut this whole fucking thing off. Because I'm done. I need to take different coaching.
I can hear my wife on my shoulder, like, be honest, Alex. No. So marriage is such an interesting. I'm glad you brought up marriage because it's one of those really interesting things that, like, if you do it right, or at least if you do it the way I believe is right, you will fail at it all the time. Because it's such a big thing. Like, you literally say to somebody, I am shackled to you, and come hell or high water, no matter what, like, we're going to be together through this thing. Like, is there not a crazier thing in this world than doing that? And then furthermore, from a Christian perspective, it is an ultimate sacrifice. Paul said that husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. So the idea being like, it's going to cost you everything. That you do all of the things, and it's not enough because it's not all of you yet, right? And so that's the weird thing about marriage. It says that the wife is your ezer kenegdo, which that's the Hebrew for helpmeet. It means like helpful adversary. I'm going to wrestle with you, and you're going to make me better. And that's not just the fun kind of wrestling. Like, I'm going to wrestle with you, and you're going to make me better. So I would say in my marriage, as soon as I think I've got it all together, I learn something else that teaches me that I don't. And so, well, it's definitely a continual process of improvement, because I'm not perfect. I would like to be, but I'm not. And so it's self-awareness and failing that drives the marriage to be better. I would say that I love being married. It's so much fun. And I hope my wife says the same. But at the same time, as a husband, meeting her needs and also caring for her and giving myself for her, that is definitely a daily choice and a daily sacrifice.
I know there's lots of husbands out there that don't verbally acknowledge ever how much they struggle with being a good husband. And I know there are many men out there who struggle every day with being a good husband, and they're inundated with information that makes them feel like they're justified for their feelings of anger or frustration, anything except for the feelings of sadness and discouragement, right? And that's what leads to anything from divorces to porn addictions to all sorts of other things. It's also what leads to just marriages that dry up. Even if you stay with the same ring on the same finger, but the love is gone, and the passion is gone, and the curiosity is gone, and the interest is gone. That's just something that many people deal with when they are constantly flooded with the cortisol that comes from not achieving the goal. Just like with an exercise, just like with a workout, just like with anything else. And I have this, just a very short story. My wife and I, about 2 years ago, had a real heart-to-heart about her anxiety and her depression. Because with a couple of kids, and then as we get closer and closer to premenopause for her hormones are changing. Like, having children transforms a woman's body and a woman's hormones. And then aging transforms a woman's hormones. And then when a woman is constantly exercising like my wife is, her body is always adapting and changing to different levels of you name it, right? Whether it's what she eats, whether it's what her body naturally produces, or if she's taking an external medication, whatever comes into the system. So she's always changing. So we have this heart-to-heart, and I ask her, do you think you'll ever be past your anxiety and your depression? And she said, I used to think I could. I used to think I could. So the woman I married was a woman who used to think she could get past her depression and her anxiety. So when I proposed marriage, I proposed to that woman who had the belief that she would get past it. 14 years later, I'm now having a conversation with a woman who has accepted she will never get past it. But she's not going to stop fighting it.
Right.
Which put the onus on me to say, what am I going to do? How am I going to change my goal? How am I going to change my faith? Am I going to have faith that she's wrong right now and she'll change her mind in the future and she'll try to get past it? Or do I need to change my faith to say, this is something we will both always have to deal with, and I will put my hope in the unseen. I will put my faith in the fact that she will keep fighting it. And I can't do anything about that. I don't have the control to fight it harder. All I can do is support her to whatever level she is choosing to fight the anxiety and depression. And that was a very hard conversation for me. It's still 2 years later so impactful that I'm chewing on it every day, because some days my wife is smiles and laughter, great ideas and creativity and adventure and spontaneity. And sometimes my wife is a puddle on the floor, and she really doesn't have the energy to do anything except barely hold the little puddle in the puddle shape. It's so wild to see how you have to change throughout a marriage. And then what's really fucked up is when I put a CIA layer on top of that, because CIA always teaches us to put yourself in the target's shoes. So then when I put myself into my wife's shoes, she's got to deal with the changes in me. She's got to deal with the transformations in me. Mm-hmm. Not just the transformations that I'm having in business and everything else, but the transformations that I'm having from my relationship with her. Mm-hmm. What is the most challenging thing for your wife in being married to you?
I would say that I feel like you should ask her, but
this is the exercise, my friend. This is the exercise.
I would say that the most challenging thing about being my wife is that I have so many things that I'm up to all of the time. And so my brain goes in a million different directions. When we were first married, she'd wake up and she's like a 7 a.m. waker. I'm a 5 a.m. waker. So I've already had 2 hours to do the research of the day, to get my workout done. I'm all ready. And so she'd walk out and I'd be like, hey, and tell her, here's what I learned. And here's all the research and blah, blah, blah. And we were married for about 4 months before she was like, can you just not talk to me in the morning? Right. But that is who I am. That's the way my mind works. I'm always interested in something new, and I'm always interested in both the understanding it, but also articulating that and helping other people to understand as well. So for my wife, the challenge there is, one, grace and patience, because this is just Alex. He's never going to shut up about what he's interested in. She loved it when I started my first podcast. She's like, oh, great, everybody else can listen.
In your closet.
Yeah, I'd be talked out. I would be talked out in my closet. But second, though, that means that it is a conscious effort for me to stop down exactly what you're talking about. Because my wife, although we've been married for 10 years, she is still changing and new and interesting every day. And so that's a conscious effort on my part to become a student of my wife, mm-hmm. in the same way that I'm interested in all the things that I become a student of elsewise. And I would say that my wife is very graceful in that way. She's probably more emotionally stable than I am. Neuroticism is a metric of personality. So she would accept that sooner than I would. Mm. Until it became a problem. When it becomes a problem for her, it was probably a problem like 3 months ago, right? Mm. So I'd say that's likely the most challenging thing about being my wife, but I'd be very interested to see what she would have to say.
So what's fascinating is all you have to do is ask her, and arguably you're going to find out that truth.
Yeah.